everyone. I'm gonna talk about the PlayStation 5 today. As many of you probably already know or realise, I recently acquired the beast. Yes, it's the PlayStation 5 Slim with the disk drive. You can see it here. The purely digital version wouldn't have this bulge here. I obviously needed one with a disk drive because the whole point of upgrading is not only that I can now play PS5 exclusive games, but importantly, I have a huge library which I collected over the years of 700 PS4 games. Now obviously I don't want to upgrade all those and play them on the PS5, that's not necessary, but there is a fair number of them. And I've made a very small selection sitting here on the sofa, and we'll have a look at those in a little while and talk about some of the issues of upgrading games. How easy is the process, what to watch out for. I've learned quite a bit there. But first let's take a very quick look back. The PS5 was launched in November 2020. So in roughly 3 weeks, we're having the 4th anniversary, starting the 5th year of the PlayStation 5. So you could say I've taken my sweet time. I talked about it at the time, of course, back in 2020-21, how I didn't feel the need at that point for a PlayStation 5. There weren't many exclusive games, and very, very few of those I considered to be absolute must-have, must-play, so I could wait. Of course, the situation got more and more difficult, especially here in New Zealand, where retailers, whether deliberately or because of the distribution and supply arrangements with publishers and suppliers, stopped providing a lot of the PS4 version copies and would only offer a PS5 version. So, yeah, things were not easy, but on the other hand, I play a lot of games which are more niche, which often don't find distribution in New Zealand anyway, so I have always had to import a certain percentage of my games, and that just steadily rose as they were scaling back PS4 game supplies in New Zealand. And being a bit on the stubborn side, I just kept going with that. Now, I think if I had only had a PS4, the original, or the PS4 Slim, the original architecture, I probably would have upgraded to a PS5 earlier. But I'm lucky enough to have a PS4 Pro, which I actually won in a giveaway one Christmas. Would you believe it? You remember my video from long ago, how I got into gaming and how I won this PlayStation 3 and had no idea what to do with it? So I then, a few years later, won a PS4 Pro in a Christmas giveaway here in New Zealand. I had what I would call the souped up version of the PS4. That sort of made the gap between the Pro and the PS5 seem smaller. So there didn't seem to be such an urgent drive for me to upgrade to PS5. Now, I then took a completely different turn in 2021 and decided I should finally have an Xbox because I'd never had one. So in August 2021, sort of pretty much at the height of the whole pandemic era, at that time things were really difficult with supplies, especially coming into New Zealand, so I struggled to actually get hold of one, but I did, and I got an Xbox Series S, the little one, the cute little white block. And I made a video about it on the 5th of September 2021. If you're interested, have a look back at that. At the time, I still balked at having a monster like this sitting in our lounge, or how to fit it into my gaming room where I've already had, a huge number of consoles connected up anyway. I went around with a measuring tape and just shook my head and said, this is going to be difficult. So the little Xbox was the perfect solution as an interim measure. It was never meant to be a complete solution, but sort of tied me over. And I have to say it has done precisely that. It allowed me to catch up with some older classic Xbox games that you can't get anywhere else, and I'm really, really chuffed about that. Those are some real treasures. Plus subscribing to GamePass, and I only have the ordinary subscription, not the ultimate one. That was complete overdrive for me, so it wasn't too expensive. And I don't know whether it's just luck or what, but the period from 2021 until I would say roughly the end of 23, early 2024, for me was just amazing on Game Pass. I really enjoyed it. There were so many indie games, and a lot of them were actually pretty good. So I spent a lot of time on the Xbox exploring all that. Sometimes I decided I liked a game so much, I then bought a PlayStation 4 copy to have a physical one. So it worked in with my whole setup, really. I have very, very fond memories of that time. I also noticed that Xbox was making a real effort to bring in more Japanese games, so I benefited from that as well. They really filled in a big gap they had there with Japanese games. Of course, most of those I had already got on the PS4, so it wasn't that significant to me at the time. But it sort of demonstrated that willingness to include Japanese games on a bigger scale, and that was a positive sign as far as I saw it. Then something strange happened. It might just have to do with my personal preferences and the games I play, but I noticed distinctly towards the end of 2023 I just didn't see as many games anymore on Game Pass that I wanted to play. The number was definitely decreasing quite markedly. Of course, last year, Microsoft made this humongous acquisition of Activision Blizzard, and after that, we know things got rather difficult this year for Microsoft Xbox. I won't go into all that. That's a topic really that would fill another whole video. But I noticed that I just wasn't playing as much on Xbox anymore. There were still a few Japanese games coming through. In particular, I remember Kunitsu-Gami, Path of the Goddess, came to Game Pass in July. And playing that game was a revelation. And I thought, wow, this is amazing.
This is a new tale of the goddess.
This game is stunningly beautiful. It was developed by a small team at Capcom using the Resident Evil game engine, and the art director was Shuichi Kawata. You see here the path leading from the village up to the shrine and Torii Gate, which will need to be defended from invading monsters. This is the task of the game, and it incorporates both action elements as well as those of strategy and tower defense, and a bit of village building as well. The priestess Yoshiro calls forth a warrior to aid her in the defense of the village. And he's called Saw. Saw will be travelling up and down that mountain a fair number of times, having to cleanse the whole area. Then comes the shocker. You try to defeat the big monster, but you can't. You flee, and the evil miasma takes over. This is where the real fight begins. Building up a support team from the village, gathering crystals in combat to purify one small area after another as you make your way up the mountain. We have purified the gate to the village and can now start building our defences. Recruiting villagers and positioning them in defensive locations is obviously crucial. At night time, it's back to defeating monsters pouring out of the defiled Torii Gate. Once we have cleaned all the spots in the village, and some are tricky to find, it's reward time. Every small item in this game is so beautifully detailed. Finally, we can carve the path to the gate. You need a lot of crystals for that. It still won't open. Now comes the really tricky bit, guiding Yoshiro down to the gate and then getting her to do the purification. I have her there in front of the gate now, and she's shining blue, but the trigger wouldn't work, so I decided to move the woodcutter, who was right in line of sight, away from the gate. Maybe that did the trick, I don't know. Look at that, a complicated job, but we're getting it done. The defilement is lifting from that part of the mountain. What is this? A beautiful tent, our new base of operations. Thank you, Yoshiro. What is it? This is the menu for assigning skills and accessories, and also saving the game. Again, the detail is exquisite. Our woodcutter has done a valiant job. Let's upgrade him. This menu is wonderfully humorous. I love how he's just standing there kicking the ground, looking around. Where's my upgrade, you fancy warrior? That's it, no more musubi. It's time to get the repair work underway. Animals have returned to the village. Let's say hello to the good dog. Shiba Inu, I think. There are also some deer wandering around the village, and they like having a good old chat as well. Well, I have a lot of jobs to look after, so excuse me while I take my leave and attend to my duties. Of course, now I'm going to buy it for the PlayStation 5. As an aside, I just want to mention something that Xbox boss Phil Spencer mentioned in a podcast interview, which I unfortunately cannot locate anymore. He famously said that Xbox had lost the console war, but what was far more interesting were his comments about how people get attached to platforms and what makes them stay with one or move. And he basically said it was naive to think that because of one big anticipated game, let's say something like Starfield, people would suddenly switch to Xbox and let their PlayStations gather dust. That is just not realistic. And especially if people have a strong investment in terms of a digital or physical library, you don't easily give that up. You've got a history with that platform. And I think he's got a point there, because my own example clearly demonstrates how my investment in PlayStation consoles over the years and building up a huge library of games has enticed me to return and to carry on and get a PlayStation 5. One reason why I have now stepped back a bit on the Xbox and was ready to commit to a relationship with the PS5 is that, as you probably know, my eyesight is not very good anymore. No surprises there, but I also have a very pesky eye condition. So for me, having good graphics is not just eye candy. It's actually really important to have a high quality, sharp picture with good detail. And that's where the little Xbox S unfortunately falls down a bit. I love my little Xbox. It's a fantastic Wii console, but it can't compete with what its bigger brother, the Xbox X, is doing, or the PlayStation 5. It's as simple as that. My own private theory is that in order to make this work for such a small console, they made sure that performance was good, and it is, but they couldn't match the graphics. The first thing, of course, I noticed when I started up my Xbox in 2021 was how fast everything was. Boot up, go here, do that. You didn't have to wait. It was all instant. It was marvellous. Games ran very well and smoothly, but the visuals. Now, this is a theme I want to come back to also with the PlayStation. I learned how much depends on the individual developer and how they prepare a game for a platform in how good it looks. Some games on my little Xbox S looked amazing, considering the graphics you get on it, and others looked a bit on the blurry and faded side. So this was the open beta in September this year on the Xbox, and you can see, yes, here, it's my character. And I think it's immediately noticeable that the graphics look pretty good in the cutscenes, as you would expect. They rendered pretty nicely on the small Xbox S. However, the moment we're in gameplay, you can see that the character models in particular look okay, but remind me just a little bit of a PS3 or early PS4 game. The combat is straightforward but well thought out and rather fun. How we see the characters and the ship in terms of technical achievement, that is of course entirely up to the developers and their work. And there she goes down. All souls aboard are lost. Except there she is, my character without whom there would be no story. So she arrives on a mysterious island, and this is where the real problems begin, with the visuals and the representation on the Xbox. I have acquired a new armour and am ready to explore what looks like a very enticing environment, but you can see already how the actual textures of the ground, the plants, all look flat and not well defined. Clearing out these corrupted is your main job on the island. This blurry, fuzzy texture issue is something I have come across with many Xbox games that have reasonably demanding graphics like this game. It becomes particularly noticeable in the far distance. A goodie, a weak health potion. I have to say, though, that the developers make the most of that blurry effect by introducing an almost painterly kind of visual effect, particularly for the backgrounds. I actually find that quite appealing. The problem I have is with clarity of vision, especially in the near and middle field for, let's say, spotting enemies. An exploration moment to treasure. It says jump, climb, alas not for the bird, just for that rather ordinary ledge. And now my problem manifested. It says target lock your enemy. Yes, I can see something in the middle distance, but what the heck is it? Show yourselves, you cowards. I want to see ID. Don't give me entity. What entity are you? They actually look pretty nasty, and they were a bit tougher to dispatch than the previous lot. By the way, I really like the music. It's very orchestral and it suits that kind of antiquity visual style we have here. I wonder what this game might look like and play like on the PS5. I have to traverse the corrupted cavern where I have to deal with a boss before I can reach my destination. This looks pretty high on the ominous and evil scale.
You must become something greater. Fountain. Drink and accept my gift.
Ha! Defeat him with my weak skills? I can't do an awful lot of damage, but on the other hand, my blocking seems to work reasonably well. Well, most of the time. I really should be running around, dodging around an awful lot more, so it's a bit of a miracle that I survived. I took quite a hammering, really.
I feel your blessings surge within me. Everlasting glory will be ours.
And then, of course, he decides to re-heal completely. Oh, yeah. And he has this new wide area burning effect. Marvellous. I take a hammering. I just keep going, chipping away, because that's the only thing I know how to do. In RPGs, you just never, ever give up going, and sometimes it works out. That's my experience anyway. At this point, with my HP nearly gone and his only halfway down, I thought I'd had it, but surprisingly, he goes down. So why do I decide to open that mysterious box? And I'm not showing you what happens any further because this is an important point and definitely a bit of a spoiler. To my surprise, I wake up. I'm still alive. I've made it. There are others around. We are all sole survivors. And here the really typical MMO part of the story begins. We have a voluble Aelstrom, my new friend, and this looks comfortingly to me like almost a PS3 RPG. And I don't mind at all because that's what I'm used to, and I like it. I am quite unabashed about it. I'm sure many people would scoff at it, and it's not the latest, but it has its own slightly cheesy charm, I think. This is the very first quest, and from here on things go pretty much as you would expect. There is a surprising amount of gathering and crafting, and that's of course an aspect in a game that I don't mind at all. The background music makes this mundane chore quite pleasant. Back at Erda's campfire, we get access to the menu for crafting things, and clearly there's going to be a lot of that activity. First look at the inventory. It's well organised. As you can see, there's already quite a lot of stuff there. In typical RPG fashion, you have to keep on top of your gear. The only thing I find slightly irksome about the menu is that it's in PC fashion, with having to move a cursor about. That's not my preferred way of doing it on the console, but it actually works surprisingly well here, and I got used to it pretty quickly.
Yes, those beasts trample everything in sight. You won't have to go far to find them. Hunt and skin a boar, then cook your meal over the fire.
I'm showing you this boar hunt because it's quite funny. The boar's very polite and obliging and goes down, but then I'm stuck. How do you skin and prepare a boar? It keeps blinking at me, but obviously the sword must be the wrong equipment. No, that won't work either. Finally, I get the hint and open up inventory and start looking for the right thing. Oh boy, what will it be like once I have hundreds of pieces of equipment in there? Anyway, flint skinning knife, that must be it, surely. And looky, once I have the right tool, it's an easy press the cross button and I'm skinning away. Whew, first time, but what an experience. Anyway, I thought that was pretty funny. Back at the campfire, I prepare my hard-won boar meat into a light ration. I've got enough to prepare a second portion, and that's enough experience to give me cooking level 1. Yay!
A successful hunt? Enter. Yes, it smells like you cooked it just right. If there is any left over, give it here. Best not to let it go to waste, you know.
Hunt and cook your own boar, lazy bastard. If there's any food left, you keep that for yourself, newcomer.
It feels nice to have voice acting like this for many of the characters. It really brings the world to life.
Wading back in to cut down the corrupted.
And here is my next quest. Crewmates no more. Already a bigger one, so that's nice. Finally, I want to show you a few more features, like the map, for example. And that ties in with the activity finder. As you would expect in an MMO, there's lots of different types of activities. And last but not least, the really important thing in an MMO is being able to join a group, of course, or setting up your own. And here they're called companies, and there are factions. I obviously don't know exactly how they work in this game, but people used the opportunity already to set up quite a few. The journal, obviously not a lot there yet. Your attributes. And I've actually got 4 points available already. That's not bad at all, is it? I really can't fault the menu. There's an awful lot there, but it's well laid out. All the information is clearly presented. And that's it. That was my coverage of the open beta of New World Aeternum. It's just noticeable. You know, it can't match the superior graphics of the big consoles, or indeed, of course, PC. But the PC is completely different and, you know, not a consideration for me personally, because I prefer playing on a console. So this year I finally realised the time had come. I couldn't put it off any longer. More and more games were releasing for the PS5, not often getting a PS4 version. And if they had a PS4 version, it often did not match the PS5 in terms of graphics and performance. That's the two things. And I was beginning to have problems, especially due to my eyesight, and I noticed it with certain games like, and I'll just grab a few. Here are 2 games where I noticed the issue very strongly. Granblue Fantasy Relink and Final Fantasy VII Remake. Those 2 games have a lot of particle effects. Even on the PS4 Pro, I sometimes just had a sort of soup of white stars exploding all over the screen, but I couldn't see my protagonists anymore, or the enemy. Even with Granblue Fantasy, there was one of these huge bosses, and I literally couldn't see him anymore. I was just flailing away. Yeah, so I put the games aside. It wasn't really workable for me. So problems like that began to increase. There were just a few games which played a bit choppy, you know, you were getting the sort of janky feeling like you were back on a PS2 or maybe PS3. Yeah, it all slowly compounded until I was handed my interest and it said, get a PS5. So I waited until the Pro was announced just to make sure I knew what was coming and I wasn't missing out on anything. I'm not going there. The price for the regular PS5 Slim dropped instantly, so it became affordable for me. And that's when one very cold day I went off to the department store and bought the beast and posted a photo of me in the shop with the box on Twitter, and that got quite a lot of interest. So the question now is, how am I finding the PS5? Fine. Booting it up, just as I did with the Xbox Series S, I instantly noticed the speed. It's the SSD drive, the vastly improved hard drives we have nowadays, combined with all the other system architecture improvements. It gives us more what I would call computer-like speeds, and it does make a difference. It's wonderful. I experimented with various placements of the PlayStation 5, vertical and horizontal. They provide you with these two little translucent plastic feet, which look like they might be flimsy, but they're actually very sturdy and slot in really nicely. It sits very securely if you want to, put it down like that. I can't demonstrate that at the moment because I've got the ring for the vertical stand here at the bottom. I've been running it like this since I got it, and I have had absolutely no issues. Ventilation is fine. I don't hear any, well, I suppose I wouldn't hear any noise because I'm half deaf anyway, but I do hear my PS4 Pro. Whoa! Whoa! Unless there's a disk in the drive loading up or being accessed, I can hear that. Ooh, it goes. It sounds a bit like an owl, doesn't it? But otherwise, very quiet, runs pretty cool. I only ever get warm air coming out the back. No way does it get near as hot as my PS4 Pro does. That is just like an oven, really. The only problem of a technical nature, hardware nature, I'm having is the size of the hard drive. You'd think 1 terabyte, which in effect gives you under that, roughly sort of, I think it was around 900 gigabytes. In today's game development climate, that is not a lot. I just installed Final Fantasy XVI, and it's 91 gigabytes. You only have to have like half a dozen games of near 100 gigabytes and you're getting pretty full up. So I'm already struggling, but I guess I always want to have too much installed. I found an interim solution, but the obvious solution is to install an extra SSD drive. And this is where the PlayStation 5 shines, in my opinion. That is something I really appreciate, is that you can easily take off the cover and get at a slot where you can install an SSD M.2 drive with heatsink, of course. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. So I'm hoping that by the end of the year I will have one, and then I should have plenty of space. In the meantime, my solution is to copy any of the PS4 games which I'm playing as PS4 on the PS5 onto an external SSD drive. And that works really well. So they're not cluttering up the internal hard drive. And I found to my surprise that with some games, it makes virtually no difference whether I have them installed on the PS4 or on the PS5. It doesn't really matter. An older hack-and-slash RPG for a quick comparison. There is a rat problem in the sewers here. I thought I had played this game before and was looking for my save file, but in fact it was Torchlight I'd played a lot before. This is a good test example though, because it actually looks pretty good on the PS4 Pro and plays without any hitch or problem.
Deeper in the sewers.
The home base for this game is huge if you look at the map, and I'm not quite sure why, as I haven't had any merchants or anything unlocked yet. Maybe this is just a Warhammer thing. Now, about the graphics, I think it looks marginally better on the PS5. Certainly the audio is a lot better.
It's not yet time.
The visuals look a bit more smoothed out to me. The sort of minor artifacting is gone. It's absolutely fine on either platform. But there are some games where I noticed a noticeable difference. Just having them on that external SSD hard drive on the PS5 with its superior speeds, etc., and of course a better graphics system. Some PS4 games look decidedly better on the PS5. And I'm not talking about a PS5 upgrade, I'm just talking about a straightforward PS4 copy being played on the PS5. And there are, of course, a lot of PS4 games that were not provided with a PS5 upgrade option. I found it's worth just checking if they make a difference. If I think I'm not quite happy with how they run on the PS4, checking on the PS5 sometimes brings a pleasant surprise. And I can tell you which game in particular I noticed it with. Ys 9 Monstrum Nox. That really surprised me. I checked it on my PS4 Pro, and there is a lot of flicker in the display. And of course that game does not have a provision for PS5 upgrade, but just installing it on the PS5, I first installed it on the internal drive, and then I moved it over to the external SSD drive. It just looks a lot better. It plays a bit smoother, but all that flicker is gone. It looks really nice now. Hey ho, I'd never have guessed that. Oh, and just in case you were wondering, yes, I have started it and I couldn't tear myself away. I'm having a great time with this. There is a very long cinematic prologue giving you quite a bit of background. The action doesn't really start until your first mission, when you're sent off into the marshes to clear them of some pesky goblins. Goblins? Well, better than slimes, I guess.
Watch out, my lord. Some of their number are spell slingers.
And what a number! We'll all have our hands full here. True test of your skills, my lord.
We're in luck. Our first boss approaches.
Founder, that's a swing and a half. Be ready to move when it winds up for another. Don't have to tell me twice.
It's a good idea to kick him while he's down. The Gigas occurs throughout Final Fantasy, but the earliest named one I'm aware of is in Final Fantasy II.
Come back and
it, you coward!
We're getting a second boss straight after the first one.
Bloody hell!
Exactly my sentiment too when I saw this one. The mighty Morbol, also going back all the way to Final Fantasy II.
That thing's breath is worse than its bite.
This looks like an opportunity for a QTE.
Now! Before it recovers! Cannot fall here.
Another one, but this one is evasive.
Now for the final push, my lord!
We've got him on the ropes now, but it took quite a while to whittle him down.
And stay down!
Morbol is no more. I haven't played 15, so I have no idea whether the combat is at all similar.
My lord. Thanks.
We cannot live without the blessing of the crystals. And the crystals work their magic through us.
This is Clive's father and younger brother Joshua.
Blessed, Joshua. Blessed to be a dominant, to wield the power of an icon. Our family has been chosen to share that power with the people. So that is what we must do.
Joshua seems to hold the key to all this. I must find out more. It's just a sort of thing I enjoy right now. It's got lots of cinematics in it. Yeah, we'll see how we go, but this is the first game I've installed that is a PS5 only game, and I looked at it and I thought, whoa, now I understand, now I appreciate why I did the upgrade to the PS5. Up until now, I'd been sort of thinking more of my PS5 as a souped-up PS4, really, because that's what it looked like to me, since I don't play a lot of the really big AAA games, that sort of thing. With the slightly smaller games, it's often not that noticeable, of course, but it definitely is with a game like this. So I'm enjoying it for that reason, and because it's a Final Fantasy game. It just looks and feels very Final Fantasy-y to me. The hairstyles. I have to chuckle every time I start up any Final Fantasy game, any modern one. So I haven't got many PS5 games as yet. I'm working slowly on that. I've obviously been rather busy with checking and upgrading quite a few of my PS4 games that benefit from running on the PS5. And I will not repeat what I did for the PS4, which was excessive collecting, I think. 700 is just too much. I've completely run out of space, and I look at it now, and honestly, I think it's a bit ridiculous. So I will divide my purchases between digital and physical. I've always done that, but it just makes sense, especially maybe for smaller games that you play once and might never revisit. I might as well just have a digital copy. But for certain bigger games, and especially for those franchises that I feel I have a special connection with, I still do like to have a physical copy. So I got myself a Dragon's Dogma 2. I bought Vengeance when it released, obviously, Shin Megami Tensei, because I wanted the Steelbook. Naturally, revenge awaits. And I really, really look forward to playing it on the PS5, because I played the original on the Switch, and while, unlike other people, I didn't really have any particular issues, time marches on, and looking at it now, especially in docked mode, I guess I'm just a bit tired of that visual display quality, let's put it like that. I would like to really appreciate and admire it on the PS5. I don't have to say much about Metaphor. I hope you've seen my video. An obvious purchase and a beautiful game. Benefits both visually and in terms of performance from being run on a bigger console. And if you're an Xbox person, of course you can play it on Xbox. And finally, the huge project of the Final Fantasy VII Remake, which I started on the PS4, and I showed you my copy and talked about the issue with the particle effects. Now this I have now upgraded on the PS5, and I just need to mention that all of these upgrades are provided for free, at least the ones I have done. And I'm really hoping that will be worth it in terms of gameplay. I'm still in two minds, because I would need to purchase the DLC separately. So there is a special episode provided. I can't remember now. Is it something about Yuffie? And of course, all PS5 upgrades, all free ones, are for the standard version only. Now that's important. If you have a lot of games that come with DLC, you will not be able to transfer that. It worked for me in one or two rare cases, sort of out of the blue. It said, it's okay, we'll let you have the DLC. But most of the time, and that is the default setting, the PS5 upgrade, the free upgrade, is for the standard version only. So I will need to purchase that special episode DLC separately. It's quite expensive, I think, so I'll obviously have to wait maybe for a sale. But I don't know whether there's any point in purchasing the separate Intergrade version that's available for the PS5. Is there any other difference, or is it literally just that one DLC that is different from the original version? I'm not quite clear on that, even though I've tried to read up about it, so if you've got any input on that, please let me know. But that's what I've done at the moment, and I've got the free upgrade, so I can play the remake now properly. Which then means I can go on to Rebirth, finally. So I've got it ready, sitting there, and when I get it, yes, I will do an unboxing once I get to it and talk about it. There's just one more issue I need to mention about the whole upgrading palaver, a problem I had honestly not expected. Most of the time, I would say in 99% of the cases where I've gone through an upgrade or even just a PS4 installation on the PS5, I have never had a problem accessing my save files. And in fact, the moment you put the disc in, the PlayStation 5 will tell you, a little notification pops up saying you can access your save file for this game. Cool. Well, it makes sense because probably my main reason why I still have PS Plus. I don't use it for the games they offer. They haven't been of interest to me in a long time. But having the cloud save file system is absolutely essential for me. So I don't see any reason, especially since the PS4 and PS5 ecospheres are so closely linked, why that shouldn't work. And as I said, in 99% of the cases it does work. But I hadn't expected this. There are 2 games that absolutely refuse to allow me to access my save files. And trust me, I've spent hours on this, jumping through all sorts of hoops. And who are the offenders? Tales of Arise. Seriously, Bandai Namco? The idea is that on your PS4, on the title page says save your file to a server, which must be a Tales of Arise server, I suppose, and you upload it. So it's not the PS Plus save system, it's one that the developer and publisher provide, I assume. So okay, I did that and then went and accessed the PS5 installed upgraded version and went back and said, access the server, please let me download my saved file. Nope, no, we have nothing there. No, nothing of interest, please keep moving. However, I'm so far advanced in this game that I'm not going to restart from the beginning, and I shall just finish it on the PS4 Pro. It looks and plays just fine on there. I don't remember ever thinking this is not good, no. So I'll just finish it on there. But that surprised me. That system is not reliable. I'm sorry having to say that. The other one that won't let me access my save file is Ryza 2. Koei Tecmo? I don't know why, because it's a Region 4 copy, so it's, syncs perfectly with my local PSN account. I've no idea, but it didn't work. Once again, I'm nearing the finish line on this one, finally, so, I'm just... It's not a biggie for me. I don't have to play it on the PS5, and it looks and plays just fine on the PS4. But I thought I'd just mention that to show you that it might be rare, but it might happen. Always have a plan B ready. So, anything else I've noticed about the upgrading your PS4 to a PS5 copy process? Yes. I have quite a few PS4 games that are region North America, so not what works best in my region, which is either the very vast Region 2, which is Europe and other territories, and Region 4, of course, which is our own. No, Region 1, North America, is quite separate, and I discovered that I need to be logged into my US PSN account to be able to access PS5 functionality for these games. So a game like Stray, P5 Tactica, P3 Reload, Eternights, which I haven't played yet, and Lies of P, haven't played that one yet either. Once I log into my North American PSN account, everything's just hunky-dory and functions just as I would expect, no problems. Controllers. That's the one that came with my PS5 Slim, and my verdict is I think this is the best controller from an ergonomic viewpoint that I have ever had. It really is incredibly good. Nice weight. The arms are just angled the right amount, for me anyway. They've made small improvements to the layout, so these two tiny buttons that can be sometimes hard to find, they just very, very slightly altered the position by angling it a little bit. Both the options button and the create button, they call it, basically for, snapshotting and recording. And would you know, I think it makes a difference. I really noticed it. It's just not quite so awkward anymore. Everything else is just fine, the right sort of clickiness without being overly loud. The only thing I'm not a huge fan of is the actual PS button there in the center, not being an actual button anymore, but just this raised PS logo. Doesn't quite do it for me, but it's a really completely minor issue. I was already pretty happy with the PS4 controller, but this one is definitely a further improvement. And thankfully it still has the headphone jack input there, so I can continue to use my beloved wired headphones really easily. I don't like, fussy arrangements. I like things to be straightforward, simple and reliable. This one I got as a backup, really. I've heard quite a few accounts from people that they've had failures with their PS5 controllers, much more than with PS4 controllers. So I thought, better be prepared. And I got that at the charging station. I didn't pay for it. Oh, goodness, these things are expensive, $120 in New Zealand. I got it via one of these, loyalty schemes where you rack up points and then you can get stuff. So, yeah. Since the PS5 is essentially fairly similar to the PS4 in how it presents on your screen, how quickly did I get used to it? Well, it's actually taken me this long, and I was thinking yesterday, I'm only just beginning to feel really comfortable, which means I don't have to think anymore, which button do I press, where do I go to do this, that and the other. So it's taken me, about a month? Yeah, I would say so. That surprised me, but then again, the changes are not huge, but they are there. The PS4 now feels to me like a comfortable old shoe, and when I look at the home screen, I don't get bothered by stuff coming at me. Everything's just nice and quiet, and I've got my theme installed, and, it's home. Let's face it, for many of us, this is home away from home. We want to look at our screen and feel comfortable and ready to enjoy ourselves starting up a game. And at first I was a bit sort of taken aback by feeling that marketing was being sort of pushed at me by PlayStation. Here's the latest game, and you must have a look at this and that. Okay, I've calmed down about that. Only when I'm on the tile for the actual PlayStation do I, get all that stuff. Other times, especially when I move across my games, what I like is that I see a big sort of picture of a scene from the game. What I don't like is having a huge oval button there saying play. It looks a bit like one of these mobile games on your phone where it says push here to play, huge button. I'm not 6 years old, I'm slightly older than that. I sort of felt a bit like, hey, are you taking me seriously? I'm a serious gamer. I don't need a huge button that says play, push play. Now, you don't have to push that button, you just click on the icon tile for the game. Hello PlayStation, not really necessary. Or make it smaller or something, Another change is that PlayStation have finally, after 4 years, nearly 4 years, introduced an upgrade to the user interface on your Homescreen on the PS5. They first rolled it out in the United States. They've had it for a while, and it's called, I think, the Welcome Screen or something. Anyway, we are now widgetized. We've got widgets, and we can edit the widgets. Yeah, I remember widgets. You remember from when Windows, was it 10 came out, and you could arrange all these widgets? Yeah. Okay, I noticed today we've got that now in New Zealand as well. So I've played around just a little bit with it. I don't want to spend hours on it. It's okay, and I can arrange things a wee bit more, that it's more useful to me, yeah. As you can see, I'm not much of a trophy hunter. If they pop, and that's fine, but if they don't, I don't get worried about it. So, yes, there are a few smaller neat touches, like I noticed when I downloaded the PS5 Upgrade version today for Tunic, super little game, I could see the download status. I didn't have to go to where you check for the download happening. It was right there as part of the widget, showing you the progress, ticking away right there on your home screen. That's neat. So I expect with a bit of experimenting and fiddling, I can improve it a bit further. So yes, I have got used to it. I am settling in, and it's working fine for me on the whole. When I first got the PS5 and started familiarising myself, I thought, this is interesting. It's sort of like a blend of some PlayStation elements for the user interface, but also just a few things from the Xbox interface. They used tiles very early on, like based on the Microsoft Windows interface. I have to say, comparing them, I think the Xbox interface is actually pretty good. I might prefer it a bit, but then I'm more used to it now as well. It sits back a bit more. It doesn't move in your face quite as much. You can set up your screen and have a bit of a zen moment, They've put the main menu functions to access right at the top, and quite small so they don't, interfere. And then you've got your main games you're playing at the moment and a nice background picture you choose. And then you've actually got to drop down to access any of the menu tiles for whether it's the store or anything else. So they're a bit sort of out of the way. And then, of course, they've got that separate little maybe it's some kind of widget, I don't know, that pops up with your account details. And, if you're familiar with the Xbox, you know what I mean. It sort of pops up on the left-hand side, and you can check anything from screenshots to achievements, etc. It's a neat system. I think it's one of the better ones, really. The PlayStation 5 to me feels like it's sort of on the right track, but it could do with further streamlining. There are just a few things where, as an old user interface person, my rule has always been as few clicks as possible between the user and what they want to achieve, where they want to go. The process for closing down a game and for the shutting down the console, it's okay, but it's sort of one step too many, if you know what I mean. I'd like to be able to just press one button, boom, and then it says, do you want to shut down? That would be optimal. I haven't been able to figure that out. Maybe it's possible on the PlayStation 5. Let me know. Those are my first impressions, and the few little gripes I have, really, really minor, you'd have to say. Is there any more serious gripe I have? And I have to say yes, but it's not one that will concern most gamers who just want to play their games. Maybe share a screenshot with a friend, and that's the extent of it. No, this is one that really affects people like me who are for want of a better word, content creators. We need to capture footage of what we're playing reliably and in a reasonable format, and be able to transfer it so we can work on it on a PC, usually. That's what most of us do. The process had been sort of a bit inconvenient on the PS4, but I've lived with it for so many years. Now, I'm talking here about capturing footage straight on the console itself. I'm not talking about having a separate capture card, using your PC or laptop connected up. I'm not talking about that because I've got a profusion of capture cards all over my gaming room, especially for the older consoles and those that are more tricky, like the PS Vita, for example. So I've got all that and cables everywhere, and I expect of a modern console that it can provide me with this functionality, that I can reliably capture footage internally on the console and then transfer it conveniently to my PC. I think that's not asking too much. I don't. So on the PS4, I press the button capture, record the gameplay. It's stored on the PS4. I then transfer the file on the PS4 onto a removable drive. In my case, I just use a USB flash drive and it works just fine. Because the other ones, the PlayStation always wants to format to use as an extended external drive. So USB flash drive is just fine for media. It's used for media and music. Now, on the original PS4, that worked like a charm and transferred quite quickly, probably because I think the files are smaller, lower resolution. But on the PS4 Pro, this process chugs along at a painfully slow pace. I have to wait like half an hour. Sometimes I sit there waiting. Well, I don't sit there. I do something else, but I have to wait an hour before the files are ready. It's slow, and I have to remember to transfer the file onto the USB drive, not, shut down the PS4 and think, oh, great, I've captured that footage, and now, no, you forgot that step. Yeah. The senior moments. I had hoped that this would be better on the PS5. Yes and no. The capturing, the recording of the footage has been improved. The reliability is now, as far as I can tell, 100%, and you can spot much better. It started recording, it is actually recording. Okay, you're good to go. And then you can stop it. It's all very clear. On the PS4, I had some failure rates, so I would say at least 10% of footage, for some reason or other, even when you know you've pressed the button, just did not happen. That is super annoying. I think they fixed that, and I think it's better, so that's good. What is not so good is that you still need to transfer your files from the internal drive to your USB flash drive, and it still takes an eternity to copy. I don't understand it. I mean, those data transfer rates should be better, and obviously the USB flash drives have to be of the faster variety, 3.2 I think we're using at the moment. It just seems awfully slow to me. This is where the Xbox is better, in my opinion. Yes, I really do think it's better, because when I say, please record, I can set it up so it records automatically onto my USB flash drive. Oh, doesn't that slow down your gaming? Nope, I have never noticed it. And it works. It's reliable for me. I know some people in the United States have in the past had an extended period of problems reported with recording. I haven't had it. It's been working great for me, and I don't have to think about it. I can shut down the Xbox, pull out the USB flash drive, take it to my laptop. Bingo. That's what I call a streamlined process. For content creators, that's what makes your day a good one as opposed to a maybe niggly one. Yeah. Of course, most people who work at a more professional level than I do use a capture card and have a setup with a PC and yada yada. I don't have all that. I work with pretty minimal equipment on the whole, so yeah, it's important to me to have a good function that's built into the console for coping with recording. To finish this discussion, I just want to point out that the PS5 uses 2 file formats to save your recorded data. You can choose between MP4, which I think everybody will be familiar with, and the other one is called WebM. And to be honest, I wasn't really that familiar with it, so I had to do quite a bit of reading. I won't bore you with all the technical details, but WebM files are likely to be a bit more compressed than MP4 because WebM is really optimized for the web, for modern browsers. MP4 is generally more compatible across a whole wide range of devices. I set my PS5 to record in the MP4 format because that's what I'm happiest with. But there is a little gotcha you need to be aware of. Occasionally the PS5 will decide of its own accord to record in WebM format. As far as I can figure out, that happens once the file size goes over a particular size or length. I find that slightly annoying. And here are just a couple more random points I forgot to mention earlier. One of them is that the PS5 can now do what I'm used to on the Xbox, which is moving files from one drive to another quite seamlessly. Also, just like on the Xbox, if you do not have enough space to install a particular game or other file, there will be a prompt to delete other applications, and it brings up a menu from which you can select to either move or delete or move to an external drive. So that's good functionality. What I haven't figured out is why they ditched the highly useful R1 button command on the PS4 to jump straight to your game's library. I found that incredibly useful. Having to scroll across on the PS5 just to get to my library is just getting a bit old. Is there any way I can get there quicker, just like you do with pressing triangle for getting to search? On the whole, I liked the way I could simply set up folders straight on my home screen on the PS4. That just worked for me. I'm not sure whether the feature the PS5 offers with grouping games is just as good. I have tinkered with that only a little bit so far. If you have any tips for making this grouping or folderizing very efficient and streamlined, please let me know. 2 more points I forgot to mention. I'll just quickly shoehorn them in. Just to come back to the nut-all question we all keep talking about forever, which is physical versus digital. It's not a versus for me personally, it's a physical and digital. And for me it's just a question, how do I manage the two? What is the best option in each particular case? And I go case by case. In a lot of cases I found that it's actually cheaper to buy the physical version because they get discounted once they're at retail. After a certain amount of time they get discounted and you can pick up some great bargains and get the physical copy. Whereas digital, yes, we do get sales, but not that predictable, and when you want a particular game, you can bet it's not on sale. And the digital prices are pretty outrageous these days. I don't think I've ever bought a game at release or at full retail digital price. Just doesn't make any sense to me. A full AA or AAA game release these days in New Zealand is well over $100. 120 for bigger games. You will pay even more depending on the options available. It's getting quite ridiculous, really. Digital games should not be that expensive when you look at the prices of their physical counterparts, I think. Just my opinion. When you look at something like Diablo 4, for example, I'll look up the price, but it was super expensive at release, yeah. So physical and getting the Steelbook edition actually made sense for me. It was better value in the end. So that's how I work it out. But as I said, I have to move more to digital because I'm literally running out of space for storing all these physical games. And yes, I'm not immune to the convenience offered by the digital system. I appreciate it, especially since I literally can't see the difference between having to put in a disc and it goes, loads up, and then it downloads and installs, as far as I can tell, the complete game, similar file size to what it would be if I had the digital version. Because I reckon they can't run a game like Final Fantasy XVI off a disc anymore. I suppose it's just too demanding. It's got to run off the internal hard drive here. So the disc is simply a repository for the file, which means if the game is ever delisted, taken down, etc., you should still be able to download it if you have a license, which is what we get when we purchase a digital game. But we know all this is fraught with issues, and there have been servers suddenly closing down and you can't get stuff anymore. Having a disk is sort of ultimate security of a sort. If you don't have access to critical day one patches, you're still, in a pretty dicey situation. But it is still a bit of comfort, I'd have to say. But there's so much managing involved with games these days because of constant updates and patches, especially for months after the release of a game. Now, this is obviously the trend. You may have seen a recent posting by Matt Piscatella. I'll pop the screenshot up here. The trend is clear, and that's clearly why the new PS5 Pro offers a physical disk drive as an optional extra. By the way, I actually like that the disk drive is detachable because it means it's more like a computer. You can replace it if it fails quite easily. I think that's a plus. I think that's good. It's just a sad sign of the times that we're moving probably to all digital consoles eventually. Nintendo's probably going to hold out the longest. But, I would have thought if you're looking at a PlayStation 6, we'll probably know in 2 to 3 years, at the latest, I would have thought what's coming. I would think they're sort of testing the waters with the PS5 Pro. You're the guinea pigs, folks. Those of you who buy the PS5 Pro, they'll be watching you closely. Who actually wants to have a physical add-on drive? So I'm sort of expecting we might see a similar arrangement for a PlayStation 6, but after that, I would say it's open slather for digital. I wouldn't be surprised. So I think I've talked enough about the PS5. All consoles are devices. They are a tool for enabling you to do something with them, something hopefully positive, enjoyable, entertaining, instructive. They're not something to form a cult around, you know. It's a machine, and I love computers, and I love tinkering with them and working with them. But at the end of the day, once they've done their job, they're beginning to grow old and then fail. Yep, we say goodbye and move on to the next one. I can honestly say that all the consoles I have had since I started gaming over 11 years ago, each console I have appreciated, enjoyed playing with, and each console has offered something a bit special that maybe the other ones didn't. Each one is unique in its own way, and that's what makes it so fun, you know. So I think it's excusable that as a bit of a techie-inclined person, I have wanted to play as many of these wonderful consoles as possible. So finishing off, I will just show you a few more of the games that I've been working on, checking them on the PS5. Thank you very much, as always, for your time. Please, keep well. I'm Food for Dogs. Bye-bye.
Soldier second-class Zach, on the job!
Conflict resolved.
Oh yeah!
Not too bad.
Piece of cake. I'll make first in no time.
I've recommended you for first.
Oh, and Jill! I love you, man!
Nares? 領主自らがここまで出向いてくるとはな。
町を襲撃する戦兵は全て私が殲滅した。残るは仮面の魔導士貴様のみだ。
確かにそのようだ。だがアウリオンのほとんどはすでに次に会う時が。
ザナスが逃げた頃。
待て。確かファーマギアの天と言ったか。ここは深追いせず戦力を立て直すべきだ。
だけど
冷静になれ。今のお前がどうやって戦うというのだ。
くそ、俺にもっと力があれば。
お前の戦いは無駄ではない。よくぞここまで持ちこたえてくれた。ファーマギアの天、私はこれよりアウリオン城に戻る。お前も共に来い。
ああ、分かったよ。
おお、無事に帰ったか、テン。
危ないところをナーレスに助けられた頃、